The first nail did not scare me. The pattern did. It was 6:18 on a cold Tuesday morning in Maple Ridge Crossing, and I had one boot on the driveway when something tiny clicked under my heel and skated across the black seal coat with a sound I knew too well. Metal on pavement. Sharp, light, deliberate. I froze before I shifted my weight, because after 20 years around tires, I know the difference between random debris and something placed where rubber is supposed to roll. The air still smelled like fresh driveway sealer, that tarry, bitter smell that had hung around my garage for 2 days after I paid a crew to make the old cracked concrete look clean again. Under the porch light, the surface shined dark and smooth, except for the silver roofing nails scattered in 2 ugly trails right behind the front tires of my pickup. Not one nail. Not 3. Dozens. Heads up, points angled, some pressed into the soft seal coat like little traps waiting for morning. My name is Ryan Caldwell. I am 39 years old, white, a garage service manager, and I have spent most of my life reading what tires leave behind. Wear bars, sidewall bubbles, alignment scrub, tread patterns and mud. Tiny clues people ignore until a repair bill teaches them otherwise. That morning, my own driveway looked like a page someone had written on in the dark. My pickup sat exactly where I had parked it the night before, nose toward the street, tool bag on the passenger floor, lunch cooler on the seat, ready for another long shift at Miller Auto Service. My daughter Ava's bedroom light was still off upstairs. She had a math quiz that morning, and I was supposed to drive her before work because her school bus had been running late all week. Instead, I was standing in my driveway before sunrise, staring at enough nails to ruin 2 tires and maybe more, while the neighborhood sprinklers hissed across perfect lawns and every porch looked innocent. Then I looked across the street. Beverly Langford was already outside. That was the part that made my stomach go still. Beverly was the president of the Maple Ridge Crossing HOA, a heavy-set white woman in her mid-50s who dressed like every morning was a luxury shopping commercial. Even at dawn, she wore a bright teal blazer over a patterned blouse, gold bracelets, red nails wrapped around a white travel coffee cup, and oversized sunglasses pushed in her hair though the sun had not even cleared the rooftops. She stood at the end of her driveway beside her white Lexus SUV, watching me with the soft smile of someone pretending not to watch too closely. When my eyes met hers, she lifted the cup a few inches. "Rough morning, Mr. Caldwell," she called. Her voice floated across the street sweet as creamer and twice as fake. I did not answer right away. I crouched slowly, careful not to touch anything, and saw the first real clue pressed into the fresh black coating near my mailbox. A tire track, curved shallow and clean, shaped an AV pattern I recognized from certain all-season SUV tires. The mark crossed the edge of my driveway, turned close to the front of my pickup, then backed out toward the street. Beverly kept smiling. What she did not know was that my driveway had not just caught the nails. It had caught the car that brought them. That driveway mattered more than Beverly could have understood, and not because it was pretty. I had paid $1,800 to seal coat it 2 days earlier after 6 months of letters, warnings, and polished little insults from the HOA about curb appeal. Before that, the concrete was old but solid, patched in places from years of Florida heat, oil drips, and the kind of honest where a working household collects. My pickup sat there every night because it was how I got to work, how I hauled parts, how I picked up Ava from school, how I kept our life moving without pretending we belonged in a brochure. It was a dark blue Ford with a few scratches on the bed, a tool chest bolted behind the cab, and tires I checked more often than some people check their bank accounts. To Beverly, that truck was an eyesore. To me, it was a paycheck with headlights. I managed the service floor at Miller Auto Service, 8 bays, 12 technicians, and enough customer emergencies to fill every weekday before lunch. I knew which tire brands left a rounded shoulder mark, which cheap all-seasons wore unevenly after bad alignment, and which luxury SUV owners ignored a low-pressure warning until their sidewalls looked tired. Tire tracks were not just marks to me. They were habits. Weight, direction, speed. A driver tells on themselves through rubber long before they open their mouth. That was why I did not sweep the nails away, even with Ava needing a ride and the clock already turning against us. I stepped backward onto the grass, pulled out my phone, and started taking pictures from every angle. Wide shot from the porch, close shot of the nails, front tire position, rear tire position, The curved V-shaped track near the mailbox. The black smear where a tire had pressed into the seal coat while it was still soft enough to remember. I placed 2 orange safety cones from my garage at the end of the driveway, so Ava would not walk through it half awake. When she came downstairs, backpack over one shoulder, hair still damp from the shower, she stopped at the open garage door and looked out. "Dad, why are there cones in the driveway?" she asked. I kept my voice even. "Because someone made a bad choice, and we are going to make sure the right people see it clearly." She looked across the street, where Beverly had disappeared inside her house, leaving her white Lexus SUV parked at an angle in the morning light. Ava knew enough about the HOA to understand without me spelling it out. Beverly had complained about our trash cans being visible for 10 minutes after pickup. She had sent a notice about my tool chest because it reflected sunlight. She had once called my pickup a commercial vehicle even though it had no company logo and no equipment hanging off it. The seal coat had been my attempt to end the noise. Fresh black surface. Clean edges. No cracks visible from the sidewalk. I thought if I gave Beverly the driveway she kept demanding, she would move on to someone else's mailbox flag or porch wreath. Instead, she gave me nails. I drove Ava to school in my neighbor's sedan after explaining just enough to keep her calm, then came back home and stood at the edge of the driveway with my work shirt sticking to my back in the humid morning air. The nails were still there. The tracks were still there. And for the first time since Beverly started treating my home like a violation, I was grateful the driveway was brand new. She had wanted a perfect surface. She got one that recorded everything. Beverly Langford did not become president of the Maple Ridge Crossing HOA because people loved her. She became president because most decent neighbors had jobs, families, errands, bad knees, or enough peace of mind to avoid 3-hour meetings about mailbox posts. Beverly had time, money, and the kind of confidence that made every opinion sound like a rule. She was a heavy-set white woman in her mid-50s with a closet full of bright blazers, silk scarves, gold bracelets, oversized sunglasses, and shoes that clicked across the clubhouse floor like punctuation marks. She never raised her voice at first. That was her trick. She smiled, tilted her head, and wrapped every insult in words like standards, harmony, and preservation. By the time you realized she had just called your life messy, the violation notice was already in your email. Maple Ridge Crossing had not always felt like a showroom. When Ava and I moved in 6 years earlier, it was a regular Florida neighborhood with kids on bikes, lawn chairs in garages, and dads rinsing coolers in driveways after Little League games. People waved from porches. Somebody always had a weed trimmer running on Saturday morning. Nobody cared if your recycling bin sat by the curb until dinner. Then Beverly won the HOA election by promising to protect property values, and slowly the neighborhood started holding its breath. She created a curb appeal committee, a seasonal display guide, and a driveway appearance policy that somehow said nothing clearly while threatening everything. The first time she came after me, it was over my pickup. She stood at the edge of my driveway in a lemon-yellow blazer and white pants, looking at my truck like it had parked itself across her dining room table. "Ryan, we are trying to maintain a residential atmosphere," she said. I told her it was my personal vehicle, registered, insured, and parked on my property. She smiled. Of course. But perception matters. Perception became her favorite weapon. My tool chest created a commercial impression. My tire shine left a visible mark. My old driveway patches suggested neglect. When I parked one wheel 2 inches over the edge of the concrete after a long shift, she sent a photo to the board before I even got inside. I tried to be patient because Ava was watching. I wanted her to learn that grown men do not have to match arrogance with arrogance. So I answered letters. I corrected what was reasonable. I brought the trash cans in early. I moved the tool chest deeper into the garage. I saved for the seal coat because Beverly kept repeating that my driveway lowered the visual tone of the street. The night before the nails, she had walked past while the surface was still fresh and glossy. The crew had placed caution tape across the front, and the wet black coating reflected the sunset in a clean, mirror-like strip. Beverly paused beside her Lexus SUV and looked at it for a long moment. "Much better," she said. Then she glanced at my pickup and added, "Now if only everything else matched the improvement." I remember that sentence because her bracelets jingled when she lifted her coffee cup, and one of her front tires rolled just close enough to the soft edge of my driveway to leave a faint tread mark. At the time, I thought she was just being Beverly. Petty, polished, and proud of herself. The next morning, when I saw the nails and the deeper V-shaped tracks near my mailbox, that memory came back so clearly I could smell the seal coat again. Beverly loved perfect surfaces because they made control look beautiful. She just forgot perfect surfaces also remember who crossed them. By 8:40 that morning, my driveway looked less like a place to park and more like a file waiting to be opened. I had the orange cones at the curb, my phone photos backed up to the cloud, and a legal pad balanced on the hood of my pickup while I wrote down everything in order. Time found. Weather. Location of nails. Position of tire tracks. Beverly's presence outside at 6:18. Her exact words. Rough morning, Mr. Caldwell. I wrote that sentence carefully because people like Beverly hide inside politeness, and polite words can still have fingerprints on them. I called the non-emergency number, explained that I had possible property damage evidence and sharp debris placed on a private driveway, and asked for an officer to document it. The dispatcher was calm, professional, and told me someone would come by when available. That gave me time to check my own camera. The little doorbell camera caught the street, but not the full driveway, and at 2:13 in the morning, it showed headlights sliding across my garage door, then the pale side of a white SUV moving slowly near my mailbox. Not enough for a license plate. Not enough for a clean face. Just a shape, a timestamp, and a slow roll that did not belong to any delivery truck. I watched it 5 times in the kitchen while the coffee went cold beside me. Then my phone buzzed with an HOA email, and I knew Beverly was not finished pretending this was about neighborhood beauty. The subject line read immediate compliance concern. Inside, she had written to the board and copied me, saying my driveway had become an active maintenance hazard, that automotive materials appeared to be present near the curb, and that Maple Ridge Crossing could not allow a residential property to resemble a mechanic lot. Automotive materials. She meant the nails she wanted everyone to think came from me. She even attached a photo taken from across the street, zoomed tight on the cones in my pickup, so it looked messy if you did not know the cones were there to keep people safe. Her message ended with a recommendation for an emergency hearing and possible daily fines if the appearance issue was not corrected. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling the house get quiet around me. Beverly had not just made a mess. She had built the accusation before the mess was even cleaned up. That was not impulse. That was planning with a silk scarf on it. I opened my email archive and pulled up the message she had sent 3 days earlier, right after the seal coat crew finished. Your driveway improvement is appreciated. However, continued vehicle-related clutter remains under review. Below that was another notice about my tool chest, another about the pickup, another about curb appeal consistency. The pattern was all there, cleaner than the one in the asphalt. When the officer arrived just after 10, I walked him through it without drama. I showed him the nails, the tire marks, the timestamp, the HOA email, and the old notices. He crouched near the driveway edge and looked at the V-shaped tread pressed into the black surface. Fresh seal coat, he asked. 2 days old, I said. He nodded like he understood exactly what that meant. Soft enough to record. Firm enough to keep. Across the street, Beverly's curtains shifted once, then fell still. I did not look away. For months, she had used paperwork to make me feel watched. Now the driveway was watching back. The officer did not make promises, and I respected that. Real evidence takes patience. He photographed the nails, the tread marks, the cones, the edge of the driveway, and the faint black transfer where something had rolled through the seal coat before it fully cured. He asked if I had touched any of the nails. I told him no. He asked if I had direct footage of anyone placing them. I told him not yet. That was the honest answer, and honesty was the only thing Beverly had not prepared for. After he left, I collected the nails with gloves, dropped them into a clear plastic bag, and labeled it with the date and time. Then I called Miller Auto Service and told my assistant manager I would be late. By 11:30, I was standing in my own driveway with a tread depth gauge, a tape measure, and the kind of focus that usually belongs under a lifted truck with a customer waiting in the lobby. The V-shaped mark near the mailbox was not random. It had alternating shoulder blocks, a center rib with broken grooves, and a small diagonal nick that repeated every few inches like a signature. I measured the width. I photographed the spacing. I placed a ruler beside the deepest impression and took another picture straight down. The driveway smelled warmer now as the sun hit the black surface, and every mark seemed sharper than it had at sunrise. Across the street, Beverly's white Lexus SUV sat in her driveway, clean enough to reflect the palm trees, but not clean enough to hide what mattered. I did not step onto her property. I did not need to. From the sidewalk, I could see the rear passenger tire angled slightly toward the street. The tread pattern matched the V-shaped mark. Same shoulder blocks. Same center groove. Same small nick on the outer edge, visible as a tiny missing bite in the rubber. And along the lower sidewall, just above the rim, there was a thin smear of black seal coat. Fresh. Glossy. Too low to be road tar. Too specific to be nothing. I took photographs from the public sidewalk, careful and steady, with my phone held at chest height. Beverly appeared behind her front window a moment later, her face half hidden by white curtains. Then the front door opened. She stepped out in a lavender blazer, cream slacks, gold earrings, and red nails bright against her coffee cup. "Taking pictures of neighbors now, Ryan?" she asked. Her tone was sweet, but her mouth was tight. I kept my voice calm. "I am documenting visible evidence from a public sidewalk." Her sunglasses lowered over her eyes like a curtain dropping. "Evidence of what?" "Your own mess." There it was again. The accusation she had planted before the nails were even gone. I looked from her tire to the black mark on my driveway, then back to her. "That is what the report will determine." Beverly laughed once, soft and sharp. "You should focus less on drama and more on compliance." Then she turned and walked inside, leaving her Lexus exactly where it was. That was her mistake. People like Beverly believe confidence can erase facts. But rubber does not care about confidence. Sealcoat does not care about status. By noon, I had the tire photographs, the tread measurements, the bag nails, the police report number, the doorbell timestamp, and Beverly's email calling my protected evidence a maintenance hazard. I spread everything across my kitchen table, and for the first time since the first violation notice, I did not feel cornered. I felt like a mechanic looking at a problem with all the parts finally laid out in order. By the time I finally made it to Miller Auto Service that afternoon, my mind was still on the driveway. The shop smelled like hot rubber, brake dust, coffee, and the lemon cleaner my assistant manager used when customers were coming in angry. Bay 3 had a minivan waiting on new rotors. Bay 5 had a pickup getting in alignment. Life kept moving, even when somebody tried to puncture yours before breakfast. I walked past the front desk, clocked in late, and asked our tire tech, Marcus, to look at the photographs without telling him whose vehicle I suspected. Marcus had worked tires for 18 years and could identify a worn tread pattern faster than most people could read a menu. I set the printed driveway photo beside the sidewalk photo of Beverly's rear passenger tire. He leaned over the counter, squinted once, and pointed with a grease-dark finger. "Same family of tread," he said. "That little chunk missing on the outside block. That repeats right there in the driveway mark." He tapped both pictures. Same spot. Same angle. Same story. I did not ask him to say more than he knew. I asked him to write a simple note saying the visible tread characteristics appeared consistent. Boring words. Careful words. Useful words. Then I called the officer and updated him with the report number. He told me a deputy could request nearby camera footage and check purchase records if there was a reason to believe the nails were placed deliberately. That word mattered. Deliberately. Not a spill. Not construction debris. Not some mystery from the sky. Deliberate meant intent, and Beverly's morning email had intent written all over it. When I got home, my next-door neighbor, Mrs. Donnelly, was waiting near her hibiscus bushes with her phone in both hands. She was 72, sharp as a tack, and had once caught a package thief because she remembered the sound of a muffler. "Ryan," she said quietly, "my side camera caught something." We stood on her porch while she played the clip. It was grainy, gray, and mostly shadows, but at 2:13 in the morning, a white SUV slowed beside my driveway. Its brake lights glowed. The vehicle angled toward my mailbox, paused long enough for a shape inside to lean toward the passenger side, then rolled forward and backed out. No face, no plate, but the timing matched my doorbell camera, and the vehicle shape matched Beverly's Lexus. I felt the pieces settle together like lug nuts tightened in the correct order. Mrs. Donnelly emailed the file to me and, at my request, to the deputy. I thanked her, and she touched my arm gently. "She has been awful to half this street," she said. "Most people just stopped fighting." That evening, the deputy called again. He had spoken with the hardware store 2 miles away. They had a register record from the previous afternoon for a small box of galvanized roofing nails paid for with a card under Beverly Langford's name. He could not give me the receipt directly yet, but he confirmed it would be added to the report. I stood in my kitchen with the phone pressed to my ear, looking at the bagged nails on the table, the printed tread photos, the timestamp still frozen on Mrs. Donnelly's video. Ava sat across from me doing homework, pretending not to listen. When I hung up, she looked up and asked, "So the nails came from her?" I breathed out slowly. The report is starting to say that. Outside, Beverly's house glowed with expensive porch lights and perfect landscaping. Her Lexus sat in the driveway, one rear tire still marked with that thin black smear. For months, she had treated my truck like the thing lowering property values. But that night, under all those clean lights, the ugliest thing on the street was not parked in my driveway. It was parked in hers. The next morning, I did something Beverly never expected from the man she kept calling messy. I made the cleanest pack at Maple Ridge Crossing had ever seen. I sat at the kitchen table before sunrise with a mug of black coffee, a stack of printed photos, and a cheap 3-ring binder Ava had found in her school supplies. On the first page, I typed a timeline. Sealcoat completed Monday afternoon. Beverly walked past Monday evening. White SUV recorded near driveway at 2:13 Tuesday morning. Nails discovered at 6:18. Beverly observed outside across the street. HOA email sent at 8:31 calling the driveway a maintenance hazard. Police report opened at 10:07. I did not add emotion. I did not write that Beverly had been cruel for months or that her smile made my skin tighten. I let the order of events do the talking. Then I added the photographs. The nails in place. The V-shaped tire track near the mailbox. The black sealant transfer on Beverly's rear tire, taken from the public sidewalk. The matching tread comparison Marcus had written in careful shop language. Mrs. Donnelly's camera timestamp. The case number from the deputy. The hardware store note was not in my hands yet, but the deputy had confirmed it would be part of his report, so I wrote that plainly too. At 9:12, Beverly sent another email, this time with the board, management company, and 3 neighbors copied. Due to ongoing appearance concerns and unsafe materials visible from the street, the homeowner must remove debris immediately and submit to a driveway inspection. I read it twice and smiled for the first time since the nails clicked under my boot. She wanted the evidence gone. That meant she knew the driveway still mattered. I replied with one sentence and attached the police report number. The driveway is part of an active documentation matter, and all evidence will remain preserved until advised otherwise. 20 minutes later, the management company called me. The woman on the phone, Linda Parks, sounded tired in the way people sound when they have been managing Beverly for too long. She asked if law enforcement was actually involved. I gave her the report number, the deputy's name, and the fact that the HOA president was now demanding removal of documented evidence. There was a pause on the line. "Please send us your packet," Linda said. "All of it." By noon, Beverly's tone changed. She sent me a formal notice for an emergency compliance hearing on Friday evening, but the words were stiff now, less confident, more polished by someone else's caution. I could almost see her sitting at her dining room table, gold bracelets stacked beside her laptop, trying to turn tire marks into a property standard problem before the truth hardened like Sealcoat in the sun. That afternoon, I came home from work and found her Lexus gone. For the first time in months, her driveway was empty, too clean, too quiet. Ava noticed it too. "She moved the car," she said from the porch. "Maybe for an oil change," I answered. But I had already taken the photographs. The tire had already spoken. Friday came with heavy clouds and that damp Florida air that makes every shirt stick to your back. I carried the binder into the clubhouse with Ava beside me and Mrs. Donnelly walking 2 steps behind us. Beverly was already at the front table in a bright red blazer, pearl necklace, gold watch, and red nails folded over a printed agenda. She looked at my binder, then at me, and smiled like she still believed a meeting room could erase a driveway. She had no idea I had brought the street with me. The clubhouse smelled like old coffee, lemon cleaner, and rain blowing in every time someone opened the door. Usually, Beverly controlled that room before the first chair scraped the floor. She controlled the agenda, the temperature, the order of speakers, even the little tray of cookies near the sign-in sheet. That evening, she tried the same performance. She tapped her red nails against the printed agenda and smiled at the room as if the hearing was simply another neighborhood lesson taught by a woman with pearls and power. "We are here," she began, "to address ongoing driveway appearance concerns and unsafe automotive debris at the Caldwell residence." The words sounded polished until Mrs. Donnelly gave a small cough behind me. Beverly's eyes flicked toward her, then toward my binder. Linda Parks from the management company sat beside the board with her laptop open, looking more serious than usual. I waited until Beverly finished describing my driveway as a recurring violation, my pickup as a visual concern, and the cones as evidence of continued noncompliance. Then she looked at me. "Mr. Caldwell, do you have anything to say before the board considers further fines?" I stood up slowly, not because I wanted drama, but because I wanted every person in that room to see the pages when they landed. "Yes," I said. "This is not a driveway appearance issue. It is an evidence issue." I opened the binder to the first page and slid copies down the table. Timeline first. Always timeline first. Seal coat completed Monday afternoon. Beverly observed near the driveway Monday evening. White SUV recorded at 2:13 Tuesday morning. Nails found at 6:18. HOA email sent at 8:31 calling the scene a maintenance hazard. Police report opened at 10:07. The room got quiet in layers. I placed the photo of the nails next to the photo of the tire track pressed into the soft black seal coat. Then the sidewalk photo of Beverly's rear passenger tire. Then Marcus's note comparing the tread features. Then Mrs. Donnelly's camera still. Beverly's smile did not disappear all at once. It tightened, then froze, then became something she had to hold in place. "This is absurd," she said. "Anyone can take pictures of tires." "That is true," I said. "That is why I called law enforcement." Linda Parks looked up at the word law enforcement. I gave her the report number again and placed the deputy's card on the table. Then Mrs. Donnelly stood, small and steady, wearing a blue cardigan with rain spots on the shoulders. She said her camera had recorded a white SUV stopping near my driveway at 2:13 in the morning and that she had already provided the file to the deputy. Beverly turned toward her with a sharp little laugh. "A white SUV? Half this neighborhood owns one." Linda clicked her laptop trackpad twice and spoke before I could. The deputy also contacted the hardware store regarding a purchase of galvanized roofing nails from the previous afternoon. That was the moment the room stopped belonging to Beverly. Her bracelets made one soft sound as her hand moved from the agenda to her purse, then back again. One board member asked whether the purchase was connected to her account. Linda did not answer directly, but she did not have to. She said the matter had been referred for documentation and that the HOA should suspend any fines tied to the driveway until the report was complete. Beverly tried to recover with words like coincidence, harassment, and hostile homeowner, but every word sounded smaller than the last. I looked at Ava sitting beside Mrs. Donnelly, watching carefully, learning the lesson I had hoped she would learn. Not that people never lie. They do. Not that authority always behaves. It does not. The lesson was simpler and stronger. When someone makes a mess in the dark, do not rush to shout. Turn on the light, preserve the marks, and let the truth explain itself. The fines were suspended that night, but the truth did not stop at the clubhouse door. By Monday morning, Maple Ridge Crossing knew there was a police report, a camera timestamp, a tire comparison, and a hardware store purchase that Beverly could not polish into an HOA policy. The management company sent a formal notice saying all driveway-related enforcement against me was on hold pending review. 2 days later, Linda Parks called and told me the board had scheduled an executive session without Beverly leading it. Her voice was careful, but I could hear the exhaustion underneath. "Mr. Caldwell," she said, "we are also reviewing prior enforcement actions issued under the driveway appearance policy." That sentence landed heavier than any apology. Beverly had not only targeted me, she had built a little kingdom out of vague rules and neighbor fatigue. The deputy's final report did not turn into some dramatic courtroom scene. Real life is usually quieter than that. The hardware store record, the camera footage, the tire marks, and the seal coat transfer were enough for the board and the management company to understand exactly what had happened. Beverly denied everything, then called it a misunderstanding, then claimed she was being treated unfairly by a hostile homeowner. But the driveway had already told its story. The board removed her from the president position by the end of the month, citing conduct inconsistent with community leadership. The driveway fines were canceled. The so-called emergency inspection disappeared. The policy about vehicle-related appearance was rewritten with actual definitions instead of Beverly's personal taste hiding inside official language. Mrs. Donnelly brought us a lemon pound cake the Saturday after the decision, and Ava placed the printed fine cancellation letter on the refrigerator like it was a report card. I finally cleaned the driveway that afternoon. The nails went into an evidence bag first, then the small remaining grit washed away with water from the garden hose. The seal coat still showed faint marks near the mailbox if the sun hit it low enough, but I never had that section redone. I left it there, not because I liked looking at it, but because some scars are useful when they remind you what patience can prove. My pickup still parks in the same spot. The tool chest still sits behind the cab. Every morning, when I step onto that black driveway and hear nothing under my boots but solid pavement, I remember Beverly across the street with her coffee cup, smiling like she had already won. She forgot that truth does not need to be loud. Sometimes it is a tire track and soft seal coat, a timestamp on a neighbor's camera, and a man calm enough not to sweep away the evidence. So what would you have done if someone tried to set you up and then used the HOA to blame you for the mess they made? Tell me what you think, because stories like this are not just about nails, driveways, or neighborhood rules. They are about the moment ordinary people stop being intimidated by fake authority. And if you believe quiet justice deserves to be heard, stay close to this channel, because the next story may begin with one small clue and end with an entire life falling apart.